This is a cold reading. There will be mistakes. The Secret of the Old Clock, a Nancy Drew story from the 1930s. Chapter 11, Visiting the Tophams. It was nearly 3 o'clock of the following afternoon when Nancy Drew paused in front of the Topham residence on Highland Boulevard. She surveyed the structure with distaste. The house was a large, pretentious affair of nondescript type. It was set back from the street and seemed to look down rather aloofly upon the surrounding homes. Even a casual glance at the lawn revealed that it had been landscaped with a vengeance. In an effort to do it in proper style, Mrs. Topham had crowded the yard with sundials, benches, birdhouses, and statues. Such a lack of taste, Nancy thought, as she walked up the path to the house. She lifted the knocker on the front door. Nancy Drew realized that the interview was apt to be an unpleasant one, and she braced herself for the ordeal. I must be diplomatic, she advised herself, or I'll not learn a thing about that clock. If they suspect what I'm about, they may bounce me out on my ear. At that moment, a uniformed butler answered the door and condescendingly waited for Nancy to state her mission. Tell Mrs. Topham that Miss Drew is calling, she directed. I am selling tickets for the charity dance. It is one of the most important social functions of the year. I'm sure Mrs. Topham will wish to attend. Nancy was forced to wait until the butler returned with permission for her to answer. As she was finally ushered into the living room, she could not help but smile at the elaborate formality, for in spite of Mrs. Topham's lofty ambitions, the woman had never achieved the commanding position in society that she strove for. The room in which Nancy found herself was even more bizarre than she had anticipated. Expensive oriental rugs clashed with window draperies of a different hue. The walls were heavy with paintings which were entirely out of place in such a small room, and period furniture had been added indiscriminately. But Nancy Drew was not interested in Mrs. Topham's lack of taste. As soon as the butler had left her alone, she hastily glanced around. Almost at once her eyes fastened upon a mantel clock which rested above the fireplace. I wonder if that can be the Crowley clock, Nancy thought. She rather doubted it, for the clock was too modern in appearance. She would have crossed the room to examine it, but a sound in the hall caused her to hesitate. As she heard someone coming, she sank down on an uncomfortable ladder-back chair and assumed an expression of composure. Mrs. Topham sailed grandly into the room, and after surveying her for a minute, took up a seat opposite Nancy. Well, she demanded coldly, what is it? I'm selling tickets for the... I don't want them, Mrs. Topham broke in rudely. I can't be handing out my money to every peddler that comes along. Mrs. Topham, I am not a peddler, Nancy said cuttingly, as a color mounted to her cheeks. With difficulty, she kept her temper in check. Perhaps you didn't understand my name. I am Nancy Drew. Oh. A slight change came over Mrs. Topham's face, for she was fully aware that Carson Drew and his daughter were cordially welcomed in River Heights homes which had merely tolerated the Tophams, or, in a few cases, barred them. I didn't catch the name, Miss Drew. What is it you are selling? Tickets for the charity dance. Well, I hardly know what to say, Mrs. Topham hedged. It was apparent that she was afraid to offend Nancy, and yet she was unwilling to part with the money. Although the Tophams were well-to-do, it was common knowledge that Mrs. Topham was decidedly stingy where other people were concerned. How much are the tickets? $2 each. Why, that's positively exorbitant, Mrs. Topham protested. But we are selling the tickets for charity, Nancy explained. I assure you the cause is an excellent one. Before Mrs. Topham could reply, the front door opened and Isabel and Ada entered the house. Unaware of the visitor, they paused in the hall and carried on a disgruntled conversation. Evidently, they had been making social calls and were angry because some woman had refused to see them. Her maid says she wasn't at home, but I know she was, Nancy heard Ada complain. The two sisters entered the living room, and when they saw Nancy, stopped short and stared rudely at her. They did not speak a word of greeting. Miss Drew is selling tickets to a dance, Mrs. Topham informed her daughters. Don't buy them, Ada advised harshly. She had not forgotten the scene in the department store and longed to avenge herself upon Nancy, whom she considered responsible for her humiliation. But Ada, Mrs. Topham protested feebly, I thought it might help our social standing to take a few tickets. Don't be silly, Mother, Ada snapped. You'll only waste your money. We don't want to go anyway. All right, I won't buy the tickets. Good afternoon, Miss Drew. Reluctantly, Nancy arose. She was somewhat taken aback at the unceremonious dismissal, for she had not accomplished the real purpose of her visit. As she turned, Nancy saw that Richard Topham blocked the door. He had entered so quietly that his arrival had been unobserved. Just a minute, Miss Drew, he said. How many tickets have you there? 4, Nancy gasped in surprise. I'll take them all. With a grand gesture, Richard Topham opened his pocketbook and carefully pulled out a $20 bill. Keep the change, he ordered with assumed indifference. Give it to the charity. Richard! His wife gazed at him with disapproval. Have you lost your mind? A $20 bill, she whispered. It's you who cannot see beyond your nose, Mr. Topham retorted, but in a low voice. You're always trying to get into society, and then you pass up a real opportunity? This donation will get our names into the paper. He slumped into the nearest chair and, after opening the afternoon paper, buried himself in the stock page. Mrs. Topham knew that the matter was closed, for she scarcely dared speak to her husband when he was absorbed in the markets reports. Nancy, too, realized that she had no excuse for prolonging her stay. I really must be going, she said quickly. What time is it, anyway? There's a clock in front of you, Isabel told her pointedly. Why, so there is, Nancy returned pleasantly. She glanced at the timepiece as though she had never seen it before. Oh, surely that can't be the old Crowley clock. I'm so interested in heirlooms. I should say not. This is a far more expensive clock than the one Josiah Crowley left us, Mrs. Topham informed her caller condescendingly. Indeed, but I suppose you still have the family clock stored away in your attic. It's so hard to part with heirlooms. Cleverly, Nancy led Mrs. Topham to further disclosures. It wasn't hard to part with that old-fashioned thing, Mrs. Topham returned. We didn't want it cluttering up the attic, Isabel added. Crowley left so much old junk. We consider the clock entirely out of place in our modern home, Mrs. Topham continued. So we sent it up to our bungalow on Moon Lake. Unwittingly, Mrs. Topham had given Nancy the information which she sought. The purpose of her visit accomplished, the girl politely thanked the Tophams for the purchase of the charity tickets and quickly took her leave. As she walked down the path to the street, she chuckled softly to herself. The Tophams may be old schemers, but this time they weren't so clever. Unless I'm mistaken, those tickets will prove the most expensive ones they have ever bought. Before they get through it, it may cost them the Crowley fortune.